Hi everyone, nice to see you in the new year, having first Java meetup. Today I'll be giving an overview of the DukeScript technology which I've been working on since few months. Basically we started with swing application, and because the UI requirements were becoming more and more complex, we thought, alright, let's write something for desktop using HTML and CSS, and the technology which we came up with was DukeScript. I'm working as a junior dev at Redfig Consulting, which represents Media Links Australia. So the thing which picked us was the main concept behind DukeScript was to write in Java and run that application everywhere, like in different platforms. You can write in Java once and run anywhere. As you can see, you can write your source code in Java and run it as an application deployed on desktop as a JavaFX application, deployed on iOS, iPhone, supports iPads, also Android, and similarly the same application is deployed on the browser itself. So you just write one source code and you can deploy it on different platforms. That's what Java is meant for, right? Write one, run anywhere. So basically, you write your source code in Java, the logic is in Java. Still, if you like JavaScript, you can still reference JavaScript from Java itself by reference callbacks. And then you design your front end in HTML5, CSS3, use Bootstrap or other JavaScript libraries, and DukeScript basically glues both the layers together. So as we can see that the models which represent the data and the functions are written in Java itself, and in the runtime the same Java code, the data gets binded to the HTML page which is displayed inside a web view component, and that's the key factor of DukeScript. It basically catches a web view component which is available for Android, for iOS, and also on the browsers, and that web view is displayed inside a browser window. I'll just give you a quick demo of the app. All right, it's taking heaps. All right. So, all right, it's not working. So basically, there is a hello world application, and so this is basically HTML front end, and the text is basically linked through knockout bindings. So that is how you can leverage knockouts API. And when I click start, it basically gives a call from the JavaScript world to the Java's world, and it runs the Java code. And that's how. And once it runs the Java code, it modifies the CSS properties. And once the CSS properties get modified, it fires the event to the JavaScript world, and that's how the element starts rotating. Right. The same thing can be viewed on the browser. It's the same app. You just run it on a browser. It just works fine. And the same source code. And same on the iPad or iPhone if you want. So coming to the talk. So how it does? So basically, it uses different VMs on different platforms. So for example, if you want to run the same application on desktop, it uses Hotspot. It uses Dalvik for Android, uses RoboVM for iOS, and back to browser is a special JVM implementation which is written by these guys, which basically converts the Java objects, the Java bytecode, into JavaScript at runtime. And basically the presenters are FX browser for a desktop and different browsers for different platforms. And this is the key concept which I was talking about, the renderer. It basically uses the web view technology on different platforms and displays the HTML component inside a web view. But however, it doesn't use web view, basically it doesn't use a web engine to manipulate the DOM. To do that, that's what the DukeScript has written. It has written an API which basically implements the knockout bindings between the JavaScript world and the Java world. and it does follow the MVVM pattern. That's how Knockout is built on. So if I go through some annotations to the code, so what we actually start writing is a model class, right? And this model class is written in kind of a JSON representation. So you write properties. A model has got properties and has got functions. And in the runtime, so based on the annotation processors, it gets converted into a Java POJO, which can be called, which the functions of which can be called from Java world. And then these properties gets binded to the HTML page using knockout bindings. There are two main annotations which it uses: JavaScript body and JavaScript resource. So this is what I mentioned before, that inside the Java source code, Java source file, when you write this JavaScript body annotation, you can actually call JavaScript, and you can run that JavaScript code from the Java and then give a callback to that Java thread again. And JavaScript resource is basically used to link the external JS library. The basic example is the Bootstrap. So basically, it basically follows a Maven post processor plugin, in which before running the application, if it finds any annotation with JavaScript resource, it basically takes up and loads all the JavaScript libraries in the runtime in the browser window. And when it does that, you can use the JavaScript libraries as you do in your web application, like Bootstrap. It just uses it. It also has inbuilt support for REST and WebSockets. So on receive is an annotation, and whatever you write inside the code, it basically gets the response from the server. And because the models are basically kind of a JSON objects, you can actually flush your JSON response directly to a model. And once the model gets populated, the HTML will be rendered accordingly. So if we can have a look at a bit of a code. And well, it's not that good, but it's because the DukeScript has been designed by the developers of NetBeans. So it works really, really well with NetBeans, but it does work with any IDE which has support for processing annotations. So basically, there is just one client code, which is the source code. So this is the main method, right? And the way it does is it builds a new browser window, and it loads. It's basically meant for single page applications, but it does support multi-page applications using template bindings for knockout. And once the browser gets ready, it invokes the on-page load method. So this is the on-page load method, and this what it does is creates a new Java object. Now this is what I was talking about. So this is it's a basic POJO object, basically in terms of JSON. So in the real time, it gets converted into a JSON kind of an object representation. And this has two properties, message and rotating. And basically, if we see the HTML for the same, so these are the data point attributes which Knockout uses to refer the VM. And these are all the properties of our view model. And they actually, in a runtime, there is internally they have a implementation of a kind of a proto kind of an object through which the JavaScript world and Java world connect to each other, and that's due to a DukeScript. You set the properties, and when you apply the bindings, that's where the fun starts. So I'll just show you the actual data object. So once you create a data object, it basically creates an annotated class, which is here. It's a bit dirty to read, but if you want to understand what goes behind the scenes, it's better to read this class. It creates a technology implementation by registering the properties what you have set on the model to the JavaScript, and when you have apply bindings, it basically flushes all the properties onto. So it basically creates a wrapper around your model in a JavaScript world, and DukeScript keeps a record of that property. And if the property changes from the JavaScript world, it basically fires an event to notify that I have changed, and that's how the view model changes. It still refers to the VM of the which is written in Java, right? And if you want to change the property of a model from Java, so if we see any setup methods like set message, right? And if you this can be called through Java, so it locks the state of the current object, which is a VM which even the JavaScript world is using, and it checks whether the value has mutated. If it's changed, then it fires an event, and once it fires an event, it fires with the new value of the message, and that's how the JavaScript world knows the new value of the object, and it updates itself. So it's taking heaps. So now, why we have used this? Because it basically follows Java's principle of writing once, runs anywhere. Just write your logic in Java and just use front end technologies to display your app, deploy on different platforms. That's what you want. It has support for different JS frameworks. So we have implemented actually the maps using Leaflet. You can also integrate Angular, but for that you have to, there is a technology interface which you have to implement. The DukeScript guys have implemented the technology interface for Knockout. Similarly, you can, I couldn't find actually a doc how to do that, but there is a way in which you can implement the interface to use Angular with DukeScript. It supports code reuse, because you don't have to have separate applications for Android, for iPhone. You just have one source code base. You can leverage the power of Java and modern UI responsive layouts. It's definitely testable code. So because your source code and logic is in Java, you can write unit tests. Also, they have released the support for integration tests using Selenium and JBehave. So it's just really works fine. It uses WebKit view and web drivers to get the runtime value from the HTML page, and it verifies whether the value is same as what you have stored in the Java object, and it just works fine. It has really excellent support. So if you have any queries, you can ask. It's still in the evolving phase, but these guys are very enthusiastic. Actually, they have won the Oracle's Dukes Award for 2014 Java 1. So it's really an evolving technology. So yep, that's all from my side. Just a brief overview. Any questions?
So you had the Java code there was it creating a JSON object, or was it actually creating JavaScript?
Java object. It's basically a Java.
No, I saw you had a string builder, and you were using that to build up something for JavaScript, or it was a JSON object or something?
Well, yes. So the Java, that's what I said. You write in Java, right? But in the runtime, when you apply the bindings, that your model object gets wrapped around a JSON kind of an object, which is deployed on the JavaScript side. But however, it doesn't hold the data. It's just used for registering the property, right? So it's not some people say that it's similar to the GUID, as it's using Java to JavaScript, but it's not that. It's not converting the entire source code into JavaScript and deploying on a server. It's still a client-side technology. It's still referring to the Java object. But however, there is a knockout bindings through which it fires the events to refer the same object. Yep.
So Dhwaneel, I've got a small interest in this, but how's the build done? Is it Maven or Gradle?
Maven. Yep. So you have Maven plugin to actually show back to browser. You can start an FX browser. You can execute RoboVM plugin, RoboVM iPhone SIM and iPad SIM to deploy it on iPad. Yep. So it's basically glued up with Maven stuff. Yep, 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 yep. You can do that. Yep, you can package it as a dex.
Cool. And slightly related, you mentioned external JavaScript. How do you reference that? So
Yep.
is it getting it from npm, like if I want knockout or Angular, for example,
Yep.
or whatever it is, leaflet even. Is it WebJars or is it using npm? Does it pull down the libraries, or do you have to download the library yourself? Just the sources from it.
Actually, what we have done is I haven't tried downloading it, but haven't. I think there's the annotation. Let's look at that. So JavaScript resource. What we have used is we have actually downloaded the stuff because we don't want to download it from in the runtime. But I think there will be a support to download it in the runtime. Yep. Yeah. Yep.
Any more questions?
So the demo we saw for a computer, it was like something running in browser.
Yep.
So it's supposed to be like run on browser, or can we have like some software for computers that we can install?
Oh, you mean the desktop app? Yeah, it's basically a desktop app. So if you so this, so not this. All right, I'll run it. So this is basically a desktop app, right? And it's used using Maven process execution. So if I just all right, client OS. So this, all right. So if we see the listing, so this the client is where you write your. There's a one folder which has client, which has a source code, and then you use different modules to render it in different browsers. What I talked about, right? And if I go to client. It basically launches as a desktop app. And similarly, you use a Maven plugin for running it in Robo VM and Dalvik VM.
Just one more question.
Yep.
So, I mean, it's supposed to, it's targeted for like all platforms, so you can have like apps for Android, iOS.
Yep.
So how to like access, for example, like camera, some of this stuff, like quite similar stuff is Cordova or PhoneGap, which works on, like, it just doesn't have Java, but rest of the things look more like same, like HTML, JavaScript, and still using JavaScript, we can access functionalities like
Yeah.
camera, cards,
Yep. You can use JavaScript for rendering this stuff.
Yeah, so do we have like support for such stuff out here?
Which one?
So like support to access camera using JavaScript?
Yeah, you can using JavaScript. I think there should
So
be.
like, in like if you want to access something specific,
Yeah.
phone, camera,
For the phone.
for example, or
All right.
gallery or SMS or contact list
Yep.
or stuff. So do we already have some libraries like JavaScript functions?
Well, they haven't got inbuilt, but no, the DukeScript as of now doesn't have the inbuilt libraries which I could find to access the phone related stuff, but I think should be there because it's Java code. There should be a way. I haven't tried that actually. Yeah, but as of now it doesn't have. I'm not aware of. Any questions?